Hello, and welcome to the podcast for the Intellectual Property Law Institute at Syracuse. I'm Professor Shubha Ghosh, and I'm very pleased to introduce Miato Hjortshøj, who is joining us from Copenhagen, and we'll talk about his startup company, Juristic, that does some very important work in legal tech. And we'll take this opportunity to learn more about his startup, as well as to talk about legal tech more broadly. So Miato, welcome, and it's very good to meet you, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much for that very nice introduction. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate being here very much as well.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Juristic. If you want to share anything with us as well, that would be great. But if you just want to talk, and we can share some links later, that's fine as well.
Yeah, so I can share something in just a second, but I actually want to start with where it all started, because we've talked before, right? And as you know, and maybe new for the people listening now, is that I have a legal background. So I'm Danish raised in Denmark, and have a Danish law degree. But before I started working in the legal industry, I actually used to work as a full stack developer. So I've done a lot of software, done a lot of that crunching, and created a lot of software. And part of the reason why I started in the legal industry was actually because I used to work in a Danish tier 1 law firm. I was tasked with implementation of technology in that specific department, not procurement, not anything fancy, but one of those things. Can you help us build some information? Can you and a knowledge base? And I kept thinking, maybe due to my background, there has to be a better way of doing this. Like, I was really tired of forms. The vendor was really nice, but I kept thinking, like, but my process would actually be completely different. Why would I have to change? To iterate. I was doing some tax structure reports, which is essentially imagine PowerPoints with drawings on one side and text on the other, and then you go through all the steps, like we invest in that company, we send money that way, and dividends would be taxed that way. 80 slides. And I kept thinking, like, if I can teach my client that a triangle would mean a fund, and I know that all my lawyers and my colleagues and the law firms abroad, they would, in Canada, US, Luxembourg, they also know that a triangle is a fund, right? A computer should be able to understand that, right? So we kind of started with that, and that has evolved into 4 different products. We launched fully last year, but we've been working on it for 3.5 years. And the entire concept is essentially, can we use the visual concepts that we are taught in law school, taught as lawyers, as basic methodology? Can we teach that to computers and have computers, help us in our work, without it being, the full, like, oh, technology will replace lawyers? Because I honestly don't really believe that. But can it help us in the way that we are used to, instead of us having to explain everything by text, and et cetera, et cetera. Sorry, that was a bit long, but I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I've seen Juristic in action, and so it'd be great to share that with you. One quick question that some of our listeners might have is, how did you make that transition from computer science to law? What was what motivated that? Or, I mean, having the computer science background in law, or computer programming background in law, is obviously extremely helpful, as you have stated, and as you'll show. But how did you make that initial leap?
It was actually fairly simple. So Denmark has obviously a different system than the US and a lot of other countries in the world. So I used to be the tech nerd, or as we call it here, like, there's a joke going on that you are the involuntary tech expert in the classroom. And because I was interested in technology growing up, I was the involuntary tech expert in the classroom, fixing projectors, fixing computers in there. And I was doing, programming on the side of even up till I was like 18, 19, 20 years old. I had what we call sabbatical years, which is between high school and university. I was working with tech and sales.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gap years. Okay, thank you. And I was doing that for a while, and I remember just like, I have to decide what I want to do for my life. Like, I've had a gap year too. I've I've joined the Danish army for a little while. We still have conscription. I liked, working practically, which I think, computer work actually is, because you're creating something. But I didn't want to be the computer guy. Like, I was really tired of being the tech guy, because, like, even just 5 years ago, how we viewed tech was different 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's not been that long, but around 10 years ago, when I was deciding, what was the most important subject I had in high school? What was the thing that interested me the most? And I was lucky, because I had a legal class in high school, business law. And because of that, I decided, okay, maybe law is the way I want to go. It's fun to think that I was in a very tiny class, because I started that class later than others, because I changed schools, and I ended up being the only one that regularly attended that class, like the only one. So me and the teacher, which obviously makes any class a lot more fun if you're prepared as well. So we had a lot of banter and a lot of teaching, and the teaching was very personal, and that made law a lot of fun. And because it was a lot of fun, I think I ended up loving law quite a bit. So it was actually by accident, but what I found, and that's what I wanted to go to, what I found was that law and IT has the same kind of thinking, and I found a lot of similarities, which I think may also be why I ended up loving law. But it was a coincidence. It was because the rest of my classmates didn't show up, and
Oh, that's a great story. Yeah, and law in Denmark, is it an undergraduate degree? Is it LLB, or is it a postgraduate degree, or would you enter it after finishing secondary school? Or
so here you would actually go directly from high school, and you can go directly or take a gap year. You'd go and get an LLB, and then when you're done, essentially the only thing you can use it for is to get an LLM as well.
I see.
So yeah, but it is completely free of charge, because of our society and how it's built. So everyone goes for the LLM, because I don't see many job opportunities with just an LLB, to be
Right.
honest.
Oh, interesting. And the LLM, do you specialize? Did you specialize in tax then? Is that where, or business?
I did. Well, actually, I didn't really. I had the mandatory topic, but I started working in a tax advisory firm, without mentioning names, because that's irrelevant. But I started working with tax on when I started my master's studying. So
I see.
that's how we ended up there.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's a fascinating story. So, and it takes us then to Juristic, right? So that's a good background to your legal tech that you've developed.
Yeah. The more I studied, I ended up writing my bachelor's project, as it's called, about automated decision making in property valuations, which is the way we tax properties in Denmark. And then I ended up writing my master thesis about the tax valuation of and how to actually calculate valuations of um, data assets, and how do you define data assets when it's sold between companies and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, the guy that didn't want to work with tech ended up writing his projects about technology. I started working at a law firm, and I had that idea, and I even promised my boss, like, oh no, I'm done with technology. I've done some startups. I'm done with that. And then 1 year, 3 months into it, I feel a little bad, but it just kept coming back. So I think avoiding technology, I couldn't, and then Juristic came from that, and I've actually just been very lucky to have some good ideas that way.
Yeah. No, wonderful. It's to say it's very hard to avoid technology. I mean, you don't want to get stereotyped or classified, but having that knowledge is very valuable. So
Exactly.
well, would you like to make a demonstration or?
Yeah, I think that may be a good starting point. So the thing is that Juristic is actually so it has turned from I started the story with Juristic being a visual point of view, where we wanted to do illustrations, and we could turn that into something. The entire idea that I had, and I think just to kind of preface it, the entire idea I had was to what if I could draw on my whiteboard or a piece of paper in theory? I could draw a triangle, as I mentioned before. I could draw a legal structure, data flow, and I could turn that illustration. The computer would just know what I wanted and then give me a draft, right? Because the first thing I was taught in law school was to make a drawing, make an illustration to make sure you understand it, or make a timeline, Christian, to make sure you understand, the facts of a case. It's so important to be right. Lawyers cannot be wrong. We are kind of, we're working with justice. We're working with people who need help. Sometimes you're also working with people with a lot of money who need help. But, we're working with such a wide spectrum of people. And for me, a lot of it always started with like, make a drawing of some sort, make a visualization. So the goal was to create a technology layer that could understand that, and then we could enable advanced technology. What I want to show, just for the tangible or tangibility of the platform, I want to show very quickly. We created a platform of 4 different products now, and I'm going to show 2 of them. So we created the whiteboard, which can then create documents. I'm going to show how that works because we read that. And then we created the timeline tool, which I think is tangible, mostly for litigation purposes, which essentially allows you to take documentation like documents, emails, deposition notes, whatever you want, and turn that into a visual timeline. And then from there, we want to create outputs, and that runs through the entire platform. If we could take the timeline and create litigation documents from it, if we can create a whiteboard and create, advisory stuff from it. So I'm going to share my screen now, if you don't mind.
Okay. No, wonderful. Yes, that's great.
I'm just going to share that. I don't know if you can see my screen.
I can see it. Yes, it's being recorded.
Perfect. So this is an example of the structuring board, and we can make it look like PowerPoint as well. But what I want to show here is that we made an entire structuring board. I can just drag in elements. It's a place like Miro. It's a place like some we have competitors, Visio, PowerPoint, stuff like that. But it's just a canvas to make illustrations, right? And we can make drawings of stuff that's going on, and we can select and we can say, oh, sorry. We can say, I don't know what's going on now, but let me just delete that. We can say that I want to create ownership, and you can see here, if I select this, it automatically becomes the correct line. The thing that you would normally do. So we wanted to create a nice drawing board. But as I mentioned before, we wanted to create something that actually gives us an output, right? Mm-hmm. So if I click this board, this is the document automation part. You can see if I click here, nothing really happens. It just shows the same tabs as we have before. But if I change this figure, I can change it to a fund, for example. Now, and it gives us the shape that you would normally expect, but we allow like organizations, law firms, law schools to change it to the, objects that they would normally use. If I change it to that and click update right here, you can see that it actually created a new step, a new slide, right? So it created something from the fact, and that's because we spent a lot of years creating the technology for it. The algorithm behind it is actually weirdly advanced. What it does is that we can connect that. So you saw the system recognized what was going on in the platform. It recognized the scenario to give us essentially, okay, you have these general takeaways in your knowledge base, or we could use AI for it. We could use, whatever we can connect data sources for it and say, I recognize the situation of a fund owning a company. Here is, for example, the tax thing, but we could use that for the GDPR flows. Let's say that is data protection here in Europe. We enter a drawing of a data flow inside a platform, and it could give us a transfer impact assessment, a report on like what do you need to do, or we could even give it an email saying, dear Christian, you need to do this, or this is the status. So as you can see, we are using this to generate or recognize scenarios in essence. That's what we are using the platform for. And we can even we can create Word documents, we can create PowerPoints, we can connect it to knowledge bank. So in essence, we created an illustration software that allows for legal scenarios to be recognized, and then we can decide what we want to do with it. So when you start a legal process, let's say you get a new client, you create an illustrative overview of what's going on. You actually also recognize the situation. You get the document that you are actually requesting, saving time or making making drafting a lot easier. And I'm talking from, of course, a professional advisor perspective, but it could be used for so many other purposes, right? In essence, we're just recognizing a legal situation. And same with the timeline tool. I'm just going to show here. Same principle. You can input some things. Instead of drawing, we're actually going to input a document that I found online. So I'm just gonna add a document here. So this is in Danish, but I hope it makes sense anyway. I can add a document right here. I can use AI features as well. And what we're doing is that I'm uploading the document. And now it's going through, and you can see that it found dates inside this document. This means 11th of March. You can say 1st of April, etc., etc. So it finds the dates, and we can add that to the timeline, or we can even, I'm just going to do it again. We're going to create a workflow. I can even use AI to generate what's going on inside that document. So now it's generating events. So same as with the structuring tool, we are giving the platform data information about what we're doing in the way that we would normally do, like we would create drawings and we create timelines, and then it's automating part of it for us. So we'll just wait for this to end. It's a fairly long document. And you can see here that when I open it, now it actually it's found the dates again, but now it has examples and text and descriptions where it's relevant, describing what is going on, and I can accept all, and you can see it auto-generated the timeline. So it created a full timeline based on the context of the document. And again, just as the other tool, we can create particulars of claim, we can export it in different formats, and we can even send this to the to AI, like OpenAI, HAI, a lot of different tools, and then we can generate, emails, memos, litigation documents based on it. Because my opinion is that both of these tools essentially correspond to some sort of persistent context window. Instead of using text, we are using organized information to create a context window where you as a lawyer or any lawyer would be able to operate inside, but we have disengaged the AI until we need it again. But we don't have to work with tables or text, or because let's say with the timeline here, if you create a timeline and you get 400 events and event 258 is wrong, what are you going to do? Are you going to prompt it again, hope for the best, pray to whatever you pray to, to that it doesn't lose its context? Or here we disengage it, you have the full ability to edit it. It even remembers where it found it, and we can then change it in the way we want. I'm just gonna not write anything here, and then again we can send this to the AI again. So I don't know if that makes sense, but in essence that's what we're doing. We are creating tools that works with the data that we would, turns it into structures and timelines, formats that we know as lawyers, and lets us work with it, essentially doing the calculations in between the answers, lets us work with AI in a completely new way.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I imagine this is wonderful in terms of, digesting. I mean, I can see lots of applications. As far as doing the timeline, you showed us with one document. I assume is it possible then to coordinate across different documents and to, if you're trying to, for example, do a negotiation and you have one side's, offers and the other side's counter offers and so forth. So
yeah, definitely. And you can tag it with much more information. In reality, this organizes it and lets you label it, which is such an important thing within data, right? With lets you label it and tag it, and lets the AI have even more information.
Interesting. And so what is where is the human interface then coming in? The human interface then would check the timelines, check some of the synapses, the diagrams and whatnot, make corrections or updates and so forth. So I mean, if there's a question of automation, one issue is that sometimes errors may be very difficult to detect and the errors may propagate. So How is that resolved, or how do you deal with those types of issues? And this is not just a question with automation, it's a question also with human compilation, of course. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd say definitely. And part of what we do, which I think is different, is that we've realized very quickly if we were to use advanced technology, we would very quickly need to address the fact that for a lawyer and within law, the calculations, as you say, in between is super, super important. What we focused us on instead was, instead of just giving you text to work with, just as most other tools would, and if you go to any person that is not a lawyer, they would generally, imagine that either you go to court or you handle a lot of documents for transactions and you send a lot of money around, right? But
right.
we kept thinking, like, how can we present these calculations, if I'll call them that in the meantime, how can we present that in a way that would make sense for a lawyer, that would make sense for a client as well? And we settled on the illustration part. Like, so that is how you edit it. That's what I mean, that the normal process, what you would do with advanced technology, and the automation part would be you pop it in and you get a magical output. You have a black box in between. We essentially replaced the black box with timelines and visualizations, and we have a task management tool as well, and a variety of other tools. But by editing the timeline, because it's interactive instead of just being a result, but by editing the timeline, you are able to change the context, give more information for the advanced technology and for the automation part, without actually having it enabled, allowing you to also do it securely and within a safe data space. So in essence, we just added a step in the middle, but it's a step that gives you the calculations and allows you to actually, work with it before you do the automation, eliminating kind of the black box effect.
Yeah. So some of this, I think this is a very powerful tool for creating these visualizations, for creating the descriptive tools. As far as the software is concerned, what type of analytics are there? I mean, can it analyze a transaction to see where there might be, let's say, for example, you're doing a transaction, you're trying to minimize the tax consequences. Is that possible with Juristic, or would that how would that work at this point? I mean, obviously there's the human element to look at the visualization and from there identify some of the issues, some of the problems. But can the tool also work in an advisory capacity, let's say, sort of an analytic capacity?
I think that's a really interesting question. I think like from a theoretical standpoint, what is important is that we split up. If we have the human element in the middle, from a legal design standpoint, if we have the human element in the middle, and we have the output generation on one side, and we have the input generation on the other side, I think that's such an important thing that a lot of people miss, because those are two different assignments that we have to figure out. For export purposes or output purposes, we can essentially do anything. We can make the system, our platform can recognize anything that you'd like, essentially. It does not matter. We can make it recognize tax structures. We have a customer that has created 112-page slide decks in 10 minutes, which would not, with text and the right context and the front pages and splitter slides and stuff like that. We've got litigation documents of hundreds of pages being analyzed. But I think, so the output is, of course, different than the input. And that's where the power comes in. We split that up into two and treat those as two separate processes. I think AI in its current form is really good at doing output, and the input part can be a little bit difficult. The human element part can be a little bit difficult for specific work purposes. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in prompting, or I don't believe in stuff like that, but I think it's important to split up in that sense, and that's what we're focusing on. What you can do with the platform, we hear a lot that you can use it for anything. It doesn't really matter, which jurisdiction you work with. It doesn't matter what language or legal system you work with, because if we really zoom out, the methodology tends to be similar across jurisdictions when you go away from words and you turn to symbols. And I would actually argue that illustrations such as structures and timelines that it's essentially hieroglyphs for lawyers. So the output doesn't matter. That's dependent on the customer and the user, and the input. Yeah, that's the difference.
And so how has Juristic been used now in practice? Has it been adopted within your firm? Is it been marketed? You're still in the early phases. For example, would it be used in courts, or has it been used in courts by magistrates or by judges or?
Yeah, we've actually got customers across 9 countries. It just expanded, so that's been pretty incredible. Even in the US, Singapore, etc., etc. We've had it used directly in court, by not by magistrates, but by the lawyers. Our main customer for our platform is, of course, lawyers and law students, law schools. But it's been used in a variety of different ways. We started 3.5 years ago. And I'm just going to be completely transparent here. We built for 2.5 years, which was tough. I went from working in a law firm with a good salary and happy life, and everything was nice, to essentially being an entrepreneur, and that was, of course, very, very difficult. Changing your life in that sense, but it was super, super interesting. It was super, super interesting. So we built for 2.5 years and we launched fully last year. And having it go across jurisdictions in that way has just been incredible.
Well, that is, I can imagine this being used even by judges as they analyze the documents provided by to find inconsistencies and whatnot. I mean, I think it's very interesting to look at this analytically too, to what extent. And I think you may have addressed this already, but it may be worth kind of talking a little bit about the way in which, if you have a negotiation, the tool can be used to create a final integrated agreement, or to identify where the parties agree, where the parties disagree, and at least have a draft of a final agreement from which parties can negotiate or can settle on, and so forth. So
yeah, and I think in essence, I think for the next step, when we come to like advanced technology within the legal sector, what has been lacking for years, we had a big AI wave in legal in 2014, 15, 16. There's a lot going on there. We had a lot going on now as well. But I think what has essentially, if I sum it up, and that may, I hope it doesn't come across like in an arrogant way, but I think even taking us out of the equation, what we lack is kind of a Rosetta Stone of sorts. I'm not saying that we necessarily are that Rosetta Stone, but there's something of a discrepancy in the way, while technology and law is very similar, there's a discrepancy in the way that we operate, and there's a discrepancy in the way that lawyers think. I'll touch upon that in just a second. And I think what has been needed has been a way to kind of have those two sides meet in a coherent way. And from my perspective, I believe in the visualization side, but it doesn't have to be the visualization side. I just think that there's something about a universal language. Instead of us trying to use words and recognize the same words, because like that's going to be impossible. That's going to be super, super difficult. And I know technology will advance. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I think prompting will. But my favorite example is the fact that a paved parking lot, in theory, could be considered a building for Danish VAT purposes, but of course not for tax purposes, but for VAT purposes. How are you ever going to have that consistent context window for any technology to understand that? How are you going to avoid making that mistake if you just write building? But if we add more context, that will be visible for technology. That will be also maybe be visible for the human element to avoid that mistake. And I think a translation layer, a bridge, a Rosetta Stone, whatever you want to call it, that's what's been missing. And I think if you can use that to embed artificial intelligence and technology into solutions, I think we're going to see actual change in this area. And for the first time, I'd say that I'm actually excited and trusting that the industry will see a technological disruption of sorts.
Yeah.
But sorry.
No. This is fascinating to see what the possibilities are for this technology. So, for example, one area where this could be applied is to take, let's say, a statute or legislation or a regulation, and I'm not saying it could be necessarily applied as is now, but I think an application could be to take that statute or regulation and turn it into a flow chart, right? So you mentioned all the visualizations that lawyers and law students are taught to use. Clearly, the timeline, clearly the organizational chart or the diagram for the transactional flows, but certainly flow charts for understanding the structure of even the structure of a legal opinion can be placed in a flow chart, right? Or structural litigation. So is flow charting also something that might be enabled by your technology? You didn't show us directly examples, but some of which we see with the organizational chart. But
Yeah, and I was actually just looking up an example just now because I actually wanted to show you an example of flowcharts because I do, and that's where law and IT actually come together
right,
in a weird marriage, so to speak. So if you don't mind, I share my screen
yeah,
again.
please do, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Certainly, a flow chart is a type of algorithm. Obviously, I mean it's a way in which
exactly, and I know this is in Danish again,
that's
but
okay.
this was actually I stopped taking notes in law school, and I started doing these instead. And
Right,
essentially, this is the IP. Sorry, I'm live translating. English is definitely my second language here, but this is IP protection of IT software. Let's
I
see if I
see.
can actually translate this in real. No, but uh, the entire idea is that is the law applicable? Is the question, and is it an IT program? If not, go this way or no, then you stop. So the
Yeah,
entire
yeah.
flow of the law can be applied here, but I would say that it would be the most powerful when it comes to the practical application of the law. And I think that's where it could be really relevant because I think there's a
Hmm.
I live in a part of the world where we use a civil law system, right? So our laws, of course, very different. But the entire concept of laws being difficult to interpret and understand for anyone who is not educated, and even people who are educated lawyers, is a big problem. There's in Denmark alone, a tiny country of like 6 million people, we have almost 1,500 laws and legal documents or like something akin to laws. That does not include case law, right? So there's so much going on. There's so much complexity in this area, and I think visualization here is, as you can probably see, this is just a flowchart, as you mentioned. That is done in
Right.
our platform as well, but it could be done in any other way. This was actually made in PowerPoint, my least favorite tool, uh, but this was actually very helpful and helped me understand the law a lot better. So I
Right,
completely
right.
agree. And what I find interesting, and for the people who are not technical, technology is in essence if then else. If it is something, do this. If it is not something, do that. And then it is a million of those to give you the result that you're seeing. I would argue that the law could be turned into a lot of these situations. For example,
Hmm.
is it an IT program? Yes, continue. Is it not? Then do that. But it could be this. Is it that? Then no. Or continue, etc., etc. Just a million of small gates that says on off. And that's essentially technology. Um, we'll have a lot because we can argue about what is an IT program a lot. We can argue about a lot,
Right.
but I would argue that again, you can do a lot visually as well for understanding, and that's why I like visualization as a coding language in essence, or rather as the translation layer between technology and law, because it kind of unifies the idea of if then else in both into one language.
Yeah, no, there's the interpretive problem, right? There's the, what is a vehicle problem, right?
Yeah.
As a scooter, a vehicle, and so forth, right? What's a pram, a vehicle, those types of things, right? And those are where the human element probably will always be there. But I guess one of the things about the flow charting and these types of visualizations, it allows you to see where the interpretive aspect comes in, where certain leaps have to be made, or, certain, perhaps technology tools, but maybe more using kind of traditional language, traditional communication, traditional sort of dialogue and argumentation. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think it has to be
So
combined.
we'll
Like, oh, sorry, I think there was a bit of delay.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, there's a bit delay. That's okay. No,
I
continue. I'm done.
I think that we have to combine it. We look at technology and lawyers and the role of lawyers, et cetera, in such a like black and white way. I think that technology and lawyers can live together harmoniously, but I think we'd have to look into how do we communicate. For example, with the timeline, we can automate a lot of different things, but that doesn't mean the death of the lawyer. That doesn't mean the death of the role as a trusted advisor. That doesn't mean the death of anything. But in essence, why do you spend time sorting documents and build your client when you could instead have software sort your document, and then you could spend 20 hours with your client and giving them the correct advice, or helping them be a shoulder to cry on, whatever they need, and in essence becoming a better advisor, even though you don't get the cheap money in essence, but your people will get back to you. And I think from a business perspective, that even makes even better sense. Having practiced a little bit, I'm fairly junior by all means, but I think we will live together. And the same with the visualization tools and translation layers. We'll still need the usual tools and the classical tools and the ways that communicate with words. I'm just saying that I think that we need something to tie them all together, and that would be perfect, whether it's us or whether it's someone else. But I think that's the way forward.
Yeah. No, these are wonderful tools. So, and these are actually, really, bringing together lots of ways in which lawyers and judges think and communicate. So, we'll pass on the links. And we've talked for pretty extensively, and I know we could talk some more. Hopefully, this will be part of a ongoing conversation. It'd be good to learn more about developments. What are the next steps then? I mean, what are the ways in which you're going to, this is Juristic. What is Juristic 2.0, 3.0, so forth going to look like in your view?
My dream for Juristic I would say would definitely be to be a place where you can connect your other solutions, the home of the case in essence. I do not believe that I will be able to create the best AI solution or LLM in the world, but what if you could connect it to us? What we don't mind being essentially middleware or being software in the middle. We want to be great at being a translation layer or being the tool in the middle where you can connect your AI tool in essence. That's the dream. So more compatibility, more solutions, more outputs, etc.
Okay. Well, let's hopefully have another conversation maybe shortly to continue. I know you're actually at the airport right now, so and this must be a nice break from that. But we'll let you enjoy the luxuries of the airport lounge in Copenhagen and everything else that you have. But I thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and we'd love to learn more. And we'll connect the links in the comment section below. This will be on YouTube, is where we have our library of these podcasts. So. And so we look forward to promoting your work and learning more about it in the future. So thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely, and I hope there wasn't too much noise in the background. But I thank you very much for the opportunity to have this conversation. It was very interesting, and I like the format very much. So I'd love to be to help more. I think you're doing a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you, and so are you. It's a great development. So thank you so much for sharing, and have a safe trip. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll talk soon.